Welcome Internet, Bread to Loaf here on this beautiful March day. Today we're going to do a quick video on the ambulance exhaust system. So as you probably heard, the ambulance just got a EFI system a few months ago. Today we're actually not focusing on that. We are focusing on the exhaust system because I don't know if it was shown in the video or not, but I had to drive approximately 600 miles one way to get this ambulance from the Midwest United States over to the Michigan, Detroit area to where we worked on it. So we had a long road trip, and during those 600 miles, some of the exhaust bolts connecting the headers to the rest of the downpipe system came out. In fact, all but one of them came out, so the connection was just loose, kind of hanging there. And this issue was discovered when we actually got to our destination to work on the EFI kit. Let's go underneath and talk about what the actual problem was. So here we are underneath the ambulance. Here are the headers coming off the engine block, and then right here at our first bolt-on connection, this is where we're having issue on both sides actually. At the very beginning, when we first put these headers on, we had simply a bolt and then one nut on the opposite side pinching these 2 points together and holding this pipe together. That was not ideal. I knew that wasn't ideal, but we ran with it anyway. When we got to our destination, we had discovered that the bolts had fallen out like this. There was just nothing there, it was just loose, and obviously that wasn't good. So for the 600-mile trip back, our quick and dirty solution was to do this, which was just to have a standard bolt and then double nut it on the other end so that these nuts apply pressure to each other and it keeps them from rattling loose and keeps the connection somewhat secure. And it actually worked. All 6 bolts made it back home with bolt nuts on the end, but this connection was still loose because of the thermal cycling and this joint expanding and contracting. So these were still loose, but they were present. So now the third solution and the final one, hopefully, is to do it properly and get exhaust bolt springs on to these bolts. So as you can see, I've already done the other side. There it is, nice and sprung and bolted down. So that's how it should look, or it should have looked. So we are about to do this side. Now, unfortunately, the problem is 2 of these bolts, the nuts are so stuck together that I cannot get them off, and I've actually rounded off the head on this bolt. Yeah, as you can see right there, pretty nasty, pretty much rounded. So we're gonna cut them off and we're gonna finish up this install. And as always, safety third, I will be wearing Ear Pro and Eye Pro. So let's get to cutting. There we go. One down, one to go. And as you can see, I can't really cut this very well with the way this guard is set up. But the great thing about these DeWalt's is you can just snap this and move the guard wherever you want it. That'll do it. And then snap it back on. There you go. Try not to cut into our oil pan, or transmission pan rather. Actually, what am I saying? I can just move this. There we go, that's easier. Maybe. So before we finish the install, let's talk a little bit about why you want to use an exhaust flange spring like this instead of just a regular nut and bolt. Well, the reason is when your exhaust system is operating at normal engine temperature, these pipes get actually really hot. And the thing about metals and getting really hot is that they expand due to thermal expansion. And then obviously once you shut the car off, these pipes cool back down to ambient air temperature, which is normally around 50 to 70 degrees, and these pipes will contract again. And it's that expansion and contraction that are what causes these bolts to come loose, the nuts to come loose off the bolts, and then they rattle away. And that's another thing about exhaust systems, is they shake a lot, they rattle, because they're usually suspended by rubber hangers. So that twofold issue of thermal expansion and contraction along with vibration is why you never want to run just normal bolts and nuts and nothing else. Now, by adding a spring onto the nut, that adds a preload, a tension to the nut that can vary with different expansions. So when it gets hot, these two plates are going to spread out, and that spring will apply that tension to keep the pipes together, that kind of resistive force. And then when these contract and they come back together when it gets cold, that spring will again apply that pressure and keep the torque on that nut relatively consistent, so it's not going to get loose and then start spinning on its own, and everything's going to puke onto the ground. So that's why you want to have a spring in the mix, and these are really high K-value springs. I can barely compress it with just my fingers. It's a very, very strong spring for the size of it. And this is what they are. They come in these little packets. They're called Dorman Help. Part of the Dorman Help product brand, and they are called exhaust flange springs. Product number is 03080. I will leave a link down in the description below to purchase these if you need them for yourself. So we got these springs, we have our bolts, and then we have our nut, and together with some washers on the nut, we'll get this job done. So the procedure is very simple. All we're going to do is take our bolt. This happens to be a 3/8-16 bolt. Then we're going to slide it to the flange. Then we're going to put on our spring, and then a 3/8 washer like so, and then a nut. And just like that, do that for all three sides. Some exhaust systems will have just 2 bolts on the flange. This one happens to have 3, but it's pretty much the same procedure. That will stop your bolts from falling out like the ambulance has had issue with in the past. Alright, check it out, fully installed. You have nice compression on all 3 springs. Everything's looking good. We got even spacing around here, so I think we're good to go. Well, I'm going to run this through some exhaust gas testing, just let the engine warm up, see how it performs, make sure there's no leaks. I'm sure there won't be. And yes, if you notice the O2 sensor bung right here with the O2 sensor sticking out of it, the ambulance now is indeed electronically fuel injected with a whole O2 sensor, air fuel ratio system, and all that good stuff. So go check out those videos if you haven't already seen them, because they're pretty awesome. We turned this big 1978 Chevrolet ambulance with the 400 from carbureted to EFI. It's pretty awesome. Videos are up right now, go check it out. Anyways, this is Bread to Loaf signing off, and thanks for watching.